Greenland's colonial past and strategic location form the foundation of its modern political and economic importance. Long before European powers arrived, indigenous Inuit communities lived across the island, developing complex systems of hunting, fishing, trade, and social organization that were perfectly adapted to the harsh Arctic environment. These societies were not isolated or primitive. They were deeply connected to regional networks and possessed sophisticated knowledge of climate, sea ice patterns, and wildlife migration. Their relationship with the land was based on sustainability and survival, not extraction and profit. This balance was disrupted when European colonial interests entered the Arctic, bringing with them new economic structures and political control that prioritized distant empires over local communities. In the 18th century, Denmark formally established colonial rule over Greenland, integrating the island into a broader imperial system. Under this arrangement, Greenland became a supplier of raw materials such as fish, sealskins, and other natural resources, while decision making power remained concentrated in Copenhagen. This created a classic colonial relationship. Resources flowed outward, authority flowed inward, and the people of Greenland were left with limited control over their own economic future. Infrastructure, trade policies, and administrative systems were designed to serve imperial interests rather than local development. Over time, this system reshaped Greenland's economy, tying it closely to European markets and limiting its ability to diversify or build independent industries. At the same time, Greenland's geographic position made it uniquely valuable. Located between North America and Europe, Greenland sits along key transatlantic routes and near the Arctic Circle, placing it at the crossroads of major global regions. This strategic placement transformed Greenland from a remote territory into a crucial link in international power networks. Control over Greenland meant influence over air routes, maritime pathways, and communication lines connecting the Western world. Geography, in this sense, became destiny. What might appear on a map as a distant frozen island became in reality a gateway between continents. This strategic importance intensified during the 20th century as global transportation and military technology advanced. Air travel, satellite systems, and long range weapons made Greenland's location even more significant. It was no longer just about trade or colonial administration, it was about surveillance, early warning systems, and military reach. Greenland's position allowed powerful nations to monitor vast areas of the Northern Hemisphere, detect potential threats, and project influence across the Arctic region. The island became a silent but critical player in the architecture of global security. Yet beneath all these geopolitical calculations lies a deeper historical pattern. Colonial powers have long targeted territories that combine strategic location with limited political resistance. Greenland fit this model, rich in potential, sparsely populated, and governed by a distant authority. This made it easier for external powers to negotiate access, establish bases, and shape policies without fully accounting for the voices of the local population. The legacy of this history still influences present day debates about sovereignty, autonomy, and control. Understanding Greenland's colonial past and strategic geography is essential because it reveals how power operates on a global scale. It shows us that interest in Greenland did not appear suddenly in modern headlines. It is the continuation of a long process in which land, location, and resources are transformed into tools of economic and political dominance, shaping the destiny of entire regions without the full participation of the people who call those places home. The Cold War marked a turning point in Greenland's global role, transforming it from a distant colonial territory into a central piece of military strategy. After World War II, the world was divided into competing power blocs, with the United States and the Soviet Union locked in a struggle for ideological, political, and military dominance. In this tense environment, geography became a weapon, and Greenland's position in the North Atlantic suddenly carried enormous strategic value. Sitting between North America and Europe, and close to the polar routes that intercontinental missiles and bombers would travel, Greenland became a frontline outpost in a conflict that was often invisible but constantly present. The United States quickly recognized this importance and established a major military presence on the island. Air bases were constructed not simply for transportation, but for surveillance, early warning systems, and strategic defense. These bases allowed the US to monitor Soviet activities across the Arctic region and provided a crucial link in the chain of North Atlantic defense. Radar stations were installed to detect incoming aircraft or missile threats, creating a protective shield for North America. Greenland, once known mainly for its ice and isolation, became integrated into the heart of global security architecture. This military transformation had lasting consequences. Large scale infrastructure projects reshaped parts of the island, bringing new roads, airstrips, and communication systems. While these developments introduced modern technology and employment opportunities, they also reinforced Greenland's dependence on foreign powers for economic activity and security decisions. Military installations operated under agreements negotiated far from local communities, often limiting Greenlanders' ability to influence how their land was used. This reflected a broader Cold War pattern, where strategic necessity frequently outweighed local sovereignty. Beyond physical bases, Greenland's role in the Cold War extended into the realm of information and intelligence. The Arctic region became a critical zone for tracking satellite movements, monitoring communications, and observing potential military buildups. Control of Arctic space meant access to data, and data meant power. Greenland's location allowed Western powers to extend their technological reach across the Northern Hemisphere, reinforcing their ability to respond quickly to any perceived threat. Even after the official end of the Cold War, Greenland did not lose its strategic relevance. Instead, its importance evolved. Modern security concerns now include cyber warfare, missile defense systems, and space based surveillance, all of which rely on geographically advantageous locations. Greenland continues to serve as a key site for advanced radar installations and early warning systems, connecting it directly to contemporary global defense networks. The island remains embedded in the security strategies of major powers, proving that its military value was not limited to a single historical period. This ongoing militarization also raises important political and ethical questions. To what extent should global security interests override the rights of local populations? How can Greenland balance its desire for greater autonomy with the reality of being strategically vital to powerful allies? These questions highlight the tension between national sovereignty and international security demands. Greenland's experience shows how small or sparsely populated regions can become central to global power struggles, not because of their population size, but because of their position on the world map and their role in the infrastructure of modern warfare. Natural resources and economic competition lie at the heart of Greenland's rising global importance. Beneath its vast ice sheets and rugged terrain exists a wealth of materials that modern economies depend on. Rare earth minerals, uranium, iron ore, zinc, oil, and natural gas have all been identified in different regions of the island. These resources are not just valuable in traditional industrial terms, they are essential for the technologies that define the 21st century. Smartphones, wind turbines, electric vehicles, advanced weapon systems, and renewable energy infrastructure all rely on materials that Greenland potentially holds in large quantities. This reality has transformed the island from a remote Arctic landmass into a focal point of international economic interest. Climate change has accelerated this transformation. As Arctic ice melts and temperatures rise, previously inaccessible areas are becoming easier to reach. What was once locked under thick ice is now open to exploration, drilling, and mining. This environmental shift is creating new economic opportunities while also introducing serious risks. Shorter shipping routes through the Arctic are reducing travel time between Asia, Europe, and North America, lowering transportation costs and reshaping global trade patterns. Greenland sits near these emerging routes, giving it strategic importance not only as a resource hub, but also as a logistical gateway for future commerce. Global powers and multinational corporations see Greenland as part of a broader competition for economic dominance. Control over rare earth minerals, in particular, has become a major strategic priority. These materials are critical for high tech manufacturing and green energy transitions, and supply chains are often concentrated in a small number of countries. By gaining access to Greenland's mineral reserves, nations hope to reduce dependence on rival suppliers and strengthen their own industrial independence. This has sparked intense interest from investors, governments, and corporate actors seeking long term advantages in the global market. However, this competition is not purely economic, it is deeply political. Resource control shapes international relationships, trade agreements, and power balances. When a country secures access to critical materials, it gains leverage in diplomatic negotiations and economic partnerships. Greenland, in this sense, becomes more than a supplier. It becomes a strategic bargaining chip in global affairs. Decisions about mining licenses, foreign investment, and trade partnerships can influence alliances and shift regional power dynamics. For Greenland itself, this economic attention brings both opportunity and challenge. On one hand, resource development offers the possibility of greater financial independence, job creation, and infrastructure investment. For a territory seeking more autonomy and economic self sufficiency, these opportunities are highly attractive. On the other hand, large scale extraction threatens fragile ecosystems and traditional ways of life. Arctic environments are especially vulnerable to industrial activity, and environmental damage can have long lasting consequences for local communities and wildlife. The central issue is who benefits from Greenland's resources. If profits flow primarily to foreign corporations and external governments, then Greenland risks repeating the patterns of colonial exploitation under a new economic model. If, however, local institutions gain control over development strategies and revenue distribution, resource wealth could support social programs, education, and sustainable growth. This tension between external profit motives and internal development goals defines the current economic debate surrounding Greenland. In the global race for resources, Greenland stands at a crossroads, caught between the promise of prosperity and the danger of becoming another example of how powerful economic forces reshape smaller regions for their own advantage. The interest of the United States in expanding its influence over Greenland is driven by a combination of strategic security concerns, economic calculations, and global power competition. At the center of this interest is the Arctic region itself, which is rapidly becoming one of the most important geopolitical frontiers of the modern era. As ice melts and access improves, the Arctic is no longer a frozen barrier, but an open arena where major powers are positioning themselves for long term advantage. For the United States, maintaining a strong presence in this region is seen as essential to preserving its global leadership and protecting its national security interests. From a military perspective, Greenland offers a unique advantage. Its location allows the U.S. to monitor activity across the North Atlantic and Arctic airspace, track missile movements, and maintain early warning systems that protect the North American continent. In an era of advanced missile technology and long range weapons, early detection is critical. Greenland functions as a forward observation point, extending the reach of U.S. defense infrastructure. This is not simply about defending borders, it is about shaping the strategic environment in which potential rivals operate. Economic considerations also play a major role. The U.S. is increasingly focused on securing reliable access to critical minerals and resources needed for advanced manufacturing, renewable energy, and defense technology. Greenland's potential reserves of rare earth elements and other strategic materials make it an attractive partner or sphere of influence. By strengthening ties with Greenland, the U.S. can diversify its supply chains and reduce dependence on competitors. This approach reflects a broader economic strategy aimed at protecting domestic industries and ensuring technological leadership in emerging sectors. Global competition further intensifies this interest. China and Russia have both expanded their presence and ambitions in the Arctic, investing in infrastructure, research stations, and shipping routes. For U.S. policymakers, this raises concerns about losing influence in a region that could shape future trade and security patterns. Strengthening influence over Greenland is therefore seen as a way to counterbalance rival powers and prevent them from gaining strategic footholds close to North America. This dynamic transforms Greenland into a key piece of a larger geopolitical puzzle. However, this pursuit of influence is not just about external rivals. It also reflects internal political and economic pressures within the United States. Leaders face demands to protect national security, create jobs, and secure access to resources that support domestic industries. Interest in Greenland can be presented as a bold move to strengthen the nation's strategic position, appealing to audiences who view global dominance as essential to economic stability and national pride. At the same time, this approach raises serious ethical and political questions. Treating Greenland primarily as a strategic asset risks ignoring the rights and aspirations of its people. Influence gained through economic pressure or political leverage can reproduce colonial style relationships, even in a modern context. The language of security and competition often masks deeper power imbalances, where stronger nations shape outcomes that primarily serve their own interests. Understanding why the U.S. seeks greater influence over Greenland requires looking beyond headlines and symbolic gestures. It is about long term positioning in a changing world order where control over space, resources, and strategic locations determines who sets the rules of the global system and who is forced to follow them. Greenland's people, autonomy, and the struggle for sovereignty represent the human dimension of a debate that is often dominated by maps, military strategies, and economic forecasts. While global powers discuss Greenland in terms of location and resources, the island is home to communities with their own history, culture, and political aspirations. The majority of Greenland's population is indigenous Inuit, whose identity is deeply connected to the land, sea, and Arctic environment. For them, the question of Greenland's future is not abstract geopolitics. It is about self determination, cultural survival, and the right to shape their own destiny.